You know that cheap little shaker of salt sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now? Well, it actually has a darker, bloodier, and way more powerful history than you could probably ever imagine. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely change how you look at the world's absolute most common mineral.
Think about it for a second. We are tracing the hidden history of what was once known as white gold. It's this entirely mundane substance that was literally powerful enough to build vast empires, fund devastating global wars, and spark massive revolutions.
So you really have to ask, how did something that we practically give away for free at fast food joints today command absolute global supremacy in the past? Because for thousands of years, this wasn't just some basic seasoning. It was a commodity that was literally worth its weight in treasure.
Okay, let's start at the beginning with Section 1, the dawn of white gold.
Before electric refrigeration came along, salt was humanity's ultimate survival technology. I mean, by drawing out moisture, salt stopped meat and crops from rotting, and this simple chemical reaction allowed early societies to survive brutal winters, actually settle down, and build civilization as we know it. Honestly, without salt, human expansion was biologically impossible.
Moving right along to Section 2, monopolies and salt empires.
The reality of the ancient world was pretty simple. Whoever controlled this vital preservative entirely controlled the people. Across history, aggressive monopolies dictated global authority. We're talking about ancient China funding massive state projects way back in 2200 BC, to ancient Rome using salt to manage its huge expanding empire, right on through to the towering economic hubs of the Middle Ages. Just consider the sheer economic reality of the medieval Sahara trade for a minute. Out in that blistering heat, salt was so desperately needed to replenish the body and preserve food that it was traded ounce for ounce for pure gold. Yeah, the exact same substance you carelessly toss into boiling pasta water was once equal to literal gold dust. Crazy, right?
And this staggering influx of white gold built unprecedented wealth all across Europe too. It transformed cities like Venice and Salzburg into total economic titans. Their breathtaking architecture, the vast naval fleets, those thriving merchant classes, they were built almost entirely on the immense, staggering profits generated from just controlling the evaporation, mining, and trade of salt.
Which brings us to a darker chapter in Section 3, taxes, revolts, and wars.
Because as we know, absolute power breeds absolute conflict. Monarchs quickly realized that since humans literally cannot live without salt, it was the absolute perfect target for taxation. These oppressive taxes completely crushed everyday citizens. Actually, the universally hated salt tax directly fueled the rage that sparked the French Revolution. And later on, during the American Civil War, armies desperately needed salt to preserve their rations and treat the wounded. If you cut off an enemy's salt supply, you crippled their ability to fight.
All right, let's look at how this all unraveled in Section 4, the fall of white gold.
Eventually, this suffocating grip reached a breaking point, and salt actually became the ultimate weapon for peaceful rebellion. During the famous 1930 Salt March, Mahatma Gandhi struck right at the heart of the British Empire's monopoly, and he defied colonial authority not with guns or violence, but by simply marching to the sea and illegally harvesting a handful of untaxed salt right out of the mud. It was this incredibly profound statement, just reclaiming the basic human right to survive.
So shortly after Gandhi's historical march, an explosive technological shift finally broke the monopoly forever. Basically, three massive innovations changed the game entirely. First, industrial mining allowed extraction on an unprecedented, massive scale. Second, modern refrigeration completely eliminated our reliance on salt to preserve our food. And third, globalized transport made moving heavy goods incredibly easy. Just like that, salt was totally stripped of its strategic power.
Looking back, the hidden history of salt is like a profound thriller. It reminds us that true power doesn't always lie in, high-tech weapons or rare jewels. Often it lies in controlling the most mundane, overlooked things that human beings desperately need just to survive.
So I really want to leave you with this thought to consider the next time you sit at your dining table and casually reach for that salt shaker. What everyday resource do we absolutely take for granted right now that future generations will look back on and realize secretly controlled our world? Is it data, fresh water, rare earth metals? Think about it. Thank you for exploring this fascinating history with me in today's Explainer, and hey, never stop questioning the power of the ordinary.
Look around almost any kitchen and you will find it. A basic, everyday mineral you can buy in bulk for pennies. It is so common we barely even think about it. Yet for thousands of years, wars were fought over it. Kings built empires funded entirely by its trade. It dictated where cities were built and who survived the winter. The reason is entirely biological. Human and animal bodies require sodium chloride to regulate fluids and keep our nervous systems firing. Without it, muscles cramp, exhaustion sets in, and eventually the body shuts down. But nature did not distribute this mineral evenly. While humans settled far and wide, salt remained trapped in highly concentrated, difficult-to-reach places, like specific coastal bays, isolated desert flats, or buried deep underground. Because every single person needed to consume it to live, and very few regions actually produced it, the physical rock itself became the ultimate geographic choke point. Whoever controlled the deposits controlled the population. Early civilizations faced a severe technological limit: food spoilage. A kingdom could only grow as large as the distance its food could travel before rotting. Packing meat and fish in heavy layers of salt solved this. The mineral drew out the moisture that bacteria needed to survive, turning highly perishable calories into stable rations that could last for months. This preservation technique allowed Roman legions to march hundreds of miles from their supply lines. Soldiers could stay in the field through the winter, carrying their calories with them, which pushed Rome's borders across entirely new continents. Even into the 19th century, military logistics relied entirely on these shipments. During the American Civil War, entire camps and supply depots faced starvation and collapse the moment their salt lines were cut. In the ancient world, this mineral functioned entirely as military infrastructure, the core technology required to sustain an army and expand a state. Because of this immense value, controlling the supply generated astronomical wealth. In the Sahara Desert, giant rectangular slabs of salt were loaded onto camel caravans and traded directly, ounce for gold dust. Maritime hubs built their fortunes by controlling the shipping lanes. In places like Venice, merchants filled storehouses with salt, leveraging their location to extract huge profits from inland cities without a coastline. Deep inland, mountain regions discovered massive subterranean deposits. The riches generated from these mines were so vast that entire underground cathedrals were carved out by workers, funded by profits of the rock above. Imperial China recognized exactly how much leverage this provided. The state implemented strict monopolies, dispatching officials to oversee vast brine extraction wells and directly record every ounce produced. Citizens could not opt out of eating salt, which meant they could not opt out of buying it. By capturing the total supply, rulers guaranteed an unavoidable tax base that enriched the sovereign state. But an inescapable tax on a biological necessity produces a predictable outcome. Rulers continuously inflated the price, placing a crushing financial burden directly onto the poorest citizens. When people were forced to hand over a massive percentage of their income just to survive, anger boiled over. Across Europe, villagers routinely rioted against state agents, violently rejecting the tax in the town squares. This tension extended well into the 20th century. Under British colonial rule, the administration enforced a strict monopoly on salt production in India, legally prohibiting locals from collecting it themselves. In 1930, Mahatma Gandhi led tens of thousands of people on a 240-mile journey. They marched directly to the Arabian Sea to defy the empire by illegally boiling seawater and harvesting their own natural salt. This was a highly calculated strike. By refusing to buy a state-controlled resource, they demonstrated that an empire's political power collapses the moment it loses control over a population's basic survival needs. So how did a resource responsible for funding empires and triggering revolts end up costing 99 cents a box? The shift occurred during the Industrial Revolution. Rather than relying on small natural springs, engineers created vast evaporation ponds and utilized heavy machinery to extract the mineral on an industrial scale. This mechanized extraction broke the geographic bottleneck completely. By moving millions of tons via rail and steamship, humans overwhelmed the natural scarcity that had defined the previous 5,000 years. With supply suddenly infinite, the price crashed. The great historical monopolies fell apart, and the immense political leverage held by the merchants and emperors vanished almost overnight. The rarity of salt is gone, but the mechanics of control remain identical. The rule of human history is clear. Whoever secures the absolute necessities of life, whether it is water, energy, or data, ultimately holds the power over everyone else.